This is the Washington Times front page for Thursday, April 28th, 2022. Thanks as always for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. Russian President Vladimir Putin has cut off natural gas supplies to two key NATO nations, Poland and Bulgaria, and threatened a lightning-fast military response against anyone who interferes with Russia's assault on Ukraine. Ben Wolfgang reports the dual moves by the Kremlin come as Russia's military offensive in Ukraine's Donbas region remains largely bogged down amid continued logistical struggles and higher-than-expected casualties. U.S. officials said the blundering campaign has exposed underlying weaknesses inside Russia's supposedly cutting-edge war machine, damaging its military credibility around the world. The decision to cut off gas supplies to Poland and Bulgaria, purportedly because the countries refused a demand to change the purchase contract and pay in rubles, confirms Western fears that the Kremlin is willing to use energy as a wartime weapon. European leaders called the move blackmail and said it will only speed up Europe's move away from a heavy dependence on Russian fuel. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas vowed to Congress that the Biden administration has a plan for dealing with the expected influx of more than 500,000 illegal immigrants a month. Stephen Dinan reports Mayorkas said the border is secure and promised lawmakers that DHS won't lose operational control of the border once Title 42 restrictions are removed. Title 42 is the statute allowing tighter security at the border based on the public health need to control the COVID-19 pandemic. Mayorkas released a 20-page plan this week that he said will defend against the surge. It relocates some personnel, tries to streamline processing for border jumpers, and appeals to Mexico and Central American countries to block migrants making the journey. DHS officials are preparing for as many as 18,000 illegal immigrants a day to surge across the border when Title 42 is lifted. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has burnished a reputation as a champion for conservative causes that will serve him in a quest for a second term in November and a possible 2024 presidential run. Susan Ferricchio profiles the governor, who rose to nearly rock star status in the Republican Party while fighting critics. 3 years into his term, the 43-year-old is beginning to overshadow other possible 2024 Republican presidential contenders and is creeping closer in popularity to former President Trump. DeSantis has become a top antagonist for Democrats, who denounced his public opposition to COVID-19 mandates and are suing to block several new laws, including an aggressive congressional redistricting plan, as well as voting regulations and abortion restrictions. A reminder that you can find all these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. If you don't have access to the Times yet, you can visit WashingtonTimes.com/George for a special subscription offer. President Biden raised the hopes of those paying off college debts after congressional Democrats reported this week he's privately told them he's exploring ways to cancel federal student loans. Susan Ferricchio reports Biden hasn't publicly confirmed that pledge, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi threw cold water on the idea last year by telling reporters that only Congress has the authority to eliminate student loans, and that legislation to address the issue wasn't under consideration. That puts the speaker on the opposite side of some of her colleagues on the issue. Dozens of House Democrats co-sponsored legislation introduced last year by Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, calling on Biden to use executive action to broadly cancel the debt. And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer sent a letter from 90 fellow congressional Democrats to the president urging him to do the same. And finally, an emotional Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts paid tribute to retiring Justice Stephen Breyer after the final oral argument that he'll hear prior to leaving the bench this summer. Alex Sawyer reports Roberts commended his colleagues' remarks during his term as profound and moving, as well as challenging and insightful, and that the whole court has deep appreciation for the privilege of sharing this bench with him. Breyer will retire after nearly 3 decades on the high court when the term wraps up at the end of June. He'll be replaced by Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was confirmed by the Senate earlier this month. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us on any major podcast platform. Just search Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at WashTimes for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.